welcome to another Random Code stream. Yeah, my name is Jason. I just got back from a week being in Vegas, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Let me get my music going, and let's just dive right into it. I wanted to pick a fairly simple one, and this is I think a bug I found in the refactoring. So this is not a high priority. I found this because there's a project that the team that I work at my day job, which my laptop's not even set up yet. It's still in my backpack. But is the music playing? It's just really, really quiet, or my ears are shot. I don't know, one or the other. But we inherited this project, and we were, it was kind of a POC, more or less, but it's something that's considered important. So our team got it, and we're trying to make sure it follows standards and just the things that we usually do. And one of the things I wanted to do was change the test projects to use NUnit and also to use rocks instead of XUnit and MOQ, because that's what we do on our team. And that was a chunk too big. Even with trying to get Copilot to grind on some of the stuff, it just was going to take too long to get it to work. And I realized at the airport yesterday that, it's better to address some of the things with the coding styles and code analysis things that it was violating, and get all that in first. And then just put some stories up to say in the future, we could do this, as time allows, but make sure that that's captured as work to do. And sometimes I think teams don't do that. It's just to say, hey, we can't boil the ocean. We can't do everything at once. But then let's just time box it, chunk it, and say, now let's do this. Capture what that is, put it up on the board, and then we'll come back to it later. Part of me thought that might be an interesting thing for a intern to do, is to say, hey, we want to have all this done. See what it takes. Here's Claude, here's Copilot, or at least understand it yourself first. But yeah, just don't do that work right now. But while I was trying to get that stuff converted, when I was putting in rocks, it's the whole eat your dog food thing. And there was a couple things I found. One of them I think is this bug. And this bug should be a fairly, I don't say easy one, but hopefully it doesn't take a lot of brain cells to work on. Because not that like when I'm in Vegas that I end up doing awful bad things. I have buried enough bodies there. I've been there so much that I that stuff is truly nothing I need to do anymore in my life. So but it is draining, and I'll get to that in a moment. So anyway, I figured I'd pick something that was hopefully not going to be too hard to do. But then there was another thing I found, and I'll try to get to this one. Oh, I didn't. Okay, I didn't even put it up as a story yet, or an issue, so as a feature idea. But I'll have to see if I can grab that out of my email first. Anyway, actually, let me do that real quick. I'm going to bring up Outlook and at least capture my idea that I came up with. There we go. And then I'll put that in here. All right. So this is an idea that I had, and I may get back to this later in the stream if I so feel like it. Anyway, okay, so we're going to work on this one in this stream, but I want to talk about Vegas for a little bit, and then I'm also going with my wife to see Project Hail Mary this afternoon. I am looking forward to seeing that in the theater, and I read the book. I've read every book that Andy Weir has written, and I really like his stuff. And The Martian was really good. Artemis was good. It wasn't great, but it was good. I definitely enjoyed it. And then I thought Project Hail Mary was really good. And so I'm hearing good things about it. I'm hearing it's pretty faithful to the book, and that it's just done really well. So hoping to enjoy that this afternoon. So that also means I'm going to do some Blueprints streaming tonight because I missed that game and I want to get back into it. But that's going to be for later. So anyway, I was in Vegas this past week, and I've really been loathing to go there. And it's not the conference. Like, the conference that I spoke at VS Live is great. I enjoy the conference. I enjoy hanging out with people that I haven't talked to in a while. But it's the city. It's the environment. It's so just... I don't enjoy it. It sucks. It sucks my mental health and my mental acuity dry after a while. And it wasn't too bad because most of the time I was either, if I'd either be in my room or I would be at the conference, which was it was in Planet Hollywood, so it was set off from the casino and fairly isolated. And I was either in the speaker room working or I would be up on stage during a presentation. So that was, that's good and fine. But then on Friday, we were done with the workshop, and so we went out. We went to dinner, had some drinks, gambled. I actually won money, which is amazing. I put I bet once. It was a $20 roulette table, and I put like 10 on black, and then I put $2 on 5 individual numbers next to each other, and one of the numbers hit, so I got 36-1 odds. Woo! But then I was done. I'm like, I'm not going to bet again, Now, if I would have put all $20 on that, Dad'd be buying a new pair of shoes. I mean, it'd have been like, what, $800 or something like that, which would have been nice, but that would also mean I had to pick one of those right, which I did, but pick out of the 5 which one was right, so... In general, I don't like gambling. I just find it not a fun endeavor to do. It's just a waste of money at the end of the day. But anyway, so we're having fun, and then one of the guys had to leave for a red eye, and then we met some people in a bar in Planet Hollywood that's right in the center of the casino floor. And these two guys just started talking with each other because they both work at the same place I don't work at. And it's the noise, it's the smoke, I can't hear anything, and I sat there for a while, and then I just said, I realized later, why did I sit there? I'm a grown man, and if I just went, this isn't good for me, I should have just said to them, hey, I should have said like an hour before that, hey, I think I'm going to go hit the hay and just leave it at that. And I think that's, if I go back there for any kind of conference, whatever, I really have to be careful with my mental state and being aware when that environment is just pulling my joy away, because it does. It's for some people it's great, and I'm not going to say to people don't go. In fact, I would say if you can at least even pass through the town, do it, because it's an experience unlike any other. It's such a different town on the Strip, especially. But but after that, don't go back if you really don't want to. It's just, it's too much visually, mentally, and I don't get how people can just sit at tables for hours on ends gambling. I don't know how they financially do it. I don't know where's all the money in the world. I don't know, because I don't understand that at all. So yeah, I was pretty bummed when I got back to my hotel room and when I got up in the morning. But then I went to the airport, did some work for a while, then realizing that work that I just mentioned, that's something we should table and just work on other stuff that's more important and come back to that later. And was like, yeah, that makes sense, you know. And then I got some ideas of how to maybe refactor it more incrementally rather than trying to do all that in the testing project. So anyway, so my advice with Vegas is if you can check it out once, do it. But, and I don't mean like do all the things that you do in Vegas, just even observe. But yeah, after that, don't feel bad about never going again. I don't go because I want to. I go because of the conference. And if they could have that first conference in the year somewhere else, I'd be so much more happy. But it is what it is. So, again, not a shot at VS Live. VS Live is a really good conference. I think, I would highly recommend it. They have other cities they do it in, and those are fine, like Redmond and San Diego and Orlando. But Vegas, man, it's just such a kicker. All right, good to be back home. It's good to be back home. Good to go see Project Hail Mary with my wife this afternoon. Be playing Blueprints tonight. This is going to be a good day. I'm going to have a good mental attitude, being intentional, being focused on what I enjoy, and not try to focus too much on all the craziness in the world. So from a coding perspective, what is this? So there's a refactoring, and I think it could, does it show up here? No, I got to bring up the scenarios project to see it. So if I come into here, and if I think, yeah, I might actually be smart enough that okay. So I could say here, there. Okay, so this one doesn't have that attribute defined yet. And so it will go off and make it for you. So if you have it on a type, you don't have to remember the syntax to do this. It will create that attribute. And then based on how your project is configured, like in this one, if you set this compiler visible property and then use that to define a file, that's what the refactoring uses to see, do you already have it in there? And if you don't, then it will offer it. That's why it doesn't do it for, come on. Yeah, now it's not, well, it's offering it up and it would do it. It's just not for some reason. But here, when I did do the dot, it doesn't show it. So, okay, fine. That's great. Hey, Electron. So, by the way, I did say, I'm almost positive I did say in the YouTube, maybe I should have put it in Discord, but I also put in YouTube that I was going to be out this past week. So I did do that. So this refactoring is nice, but it has been a little squirrely in terms of trying to figure out what your intent is, which type you want to target to end up, there it goes, to end up creating that attribute. Okay. And what I found is specifically with a closed generic, it didn't seem to pick the type up right. And so that's what I want to work on in this stream is how do you get it so that it actually picks up the right type? And so what do I mean by that? Well, if I go into here and actually I can't English bad speaking, can't do. Let's make a new branch. And then let's come into here. Completions. So I think I have tests around this. So let's put a test. Do I already have one in here for this? One class. I don't think I do. So yeah, I just want to make sure I didn't duplicate effort because I've done that recently. And we want to run when target is closed generic. And so the case I ran into in code is the original developer had put in iLogger of customer or whatever. And I wanted to be able to mock iLogger. Well, Rocks doesn't support closed generics, and for a good reason. So how was Vegas? You need to watch the beginning of the stream. I just talked about all that. But the conference was fine. Talking to and hanging out with friends was fine. Vegas sucks. Long story short, it's too much for me these days. And I've said this many times. I've been to Vegas at least 20, if not more times, and I don't go there for the atmosphere, for the town. Like, my wife and I are going to go to VS Live Redmond in August. So Redmond, Bellevue, Seattle, and we've always stayed a couple extra days because then we go out and like we'll go hiking somewhere or something like that, and that's very enjoyable. Like, we went to the falls, Snoqualmie Falls or something like that, and we did that a couple years ago. Last year we went to, yes, this is Poo Poo Point or something like that, I think it's called, but it's probably pronounced Popo or something like that. But that was really nice, a nice hike. And then there was a small town next to it, and when you come off the trailhead, you can just walk a couple blocks, and we got some dinner there. And so we're going to do that again this year, and I look forward to that. San Diego, I really like San Diego a lot. Orlando's fine. It's maybe probably a little bit more appealing if you got family with and stuff, but it's fine. There's good places to go, and I enjoy that too. And they've done like DC, Chicago, Boston, Austin in the past, Nashville one year. I'd love if they did those cities too. Nashville was a hell of a lot of fun. That was a great place to go. But yeah, Vegas, don't like it. Good luck with 12th grade, by the way. All right, so in Rocks, it doesn't support closed generics, and for a good reason, because it used to, and then it would generate all these types with weird names for differentiation. And I said at one point, this is stupid. If you want to mock iLogger of some value, just mock the open generic, and then when the person's writing the code, they can fill in that hole, whatever the type is. And that works swimmingly. That works so much better that way. So it's generic code, literally. I can write it once, and then I don't have to write it again. So the problem is that I wanted to say, well, what we want to mock is iLogger as an open generic. And the refactoring, I think, wasn't picking that up, and it ended up going up to like the root type of the test class or something like that. It didn't work. So that's what I want to solve here. So let's say we had public interface iLogger of T. It doesn't matter. We can just have void log string message. Being a logger doesn't matter. That's not what we're trying to target here. What I wanted to do is say, let's have a public target usage iLogger of target usage logger. Now, this also may be contextual, because the example in the code that I found, it was actually assigning a logger to a new mock of iLogger of customer, whatever it was. And so it might be in a couple different places. So that's one thing I want to do. May also need to cover var value is equal to new. Well, it wouldn't be an iLogger because that's an interface, but you get the point. Well, it was actually mock of iLogger of target usage. And so it was actually buried within another thing from MOQ. So we may need to cover that. This might not be the actual case, but at least it's a place to start. So we want to say that the cursor is here. Whoops. Okay. Something like that. What game are you playing now these days? Blueprints. Blueprints. And that's been a slow burn, but the more I play it, the more I enjoy it. It's fun, it's relaxing, it's interesting, and you know, and the mystery slowly but surely starting to unravel. So it might take a stream or two to get my head back around everything, but that's fun. I am having a good time playing Blueprints. So speaking of a good time, I need more coffee. Come on. Every last drop. No drop left behind. Especially these days when it comes to gas. Jeez. Anyway. Be intentional. Focus. Focus on the good stuff, Jason. Okay. So, what we want in this case is we want the fixed source to end up being something like, we got to get this out of here, where the type is logger of this. That's what we want. Okay. Let's try Call of Duty. Nothing against the game. I'm just not real interested in the Call of Duty games, so there's other games I'm much more interested in. Ugh, I just filled the cup, Jason. Wow, I almost spilled it on myself, but I didn't. So, okay, we got a class, we got this, blah, 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 blah. I'm expecting that when I run this, the refactoring isn't going to work. But that's okay, because that's why we write tests. I hate this window. I hate it with a passion. Yeah, so basically, I don't think it even did it. Yeah, and actually, I should, because it puts it here. Right? Yeah. And let's just make sure. Okay, so that's where we planned it to be, but it's not there. So, fair enough. Let's run this again. GTA, not a GTA fan. No, I have no interest in GTA. Again, oh, what? It did pass. Okay, so maybe this is contextual. Target is closed generic parameter type. So we'll do that. We'll keep that test around because variable assignment. And if I can't reproduce it, then oh well, we move on. I wanted this to not be too long of a stream, and I also didn't want it to be too long of a deep dive because my brain is still it's fixing all the neurons that got kind of toasted just sitting there in Vegas on a Friday night. I will say this, what blows me away is when I see families like with kids walking through the casino or walking around Vegas, because you know there are people that are on the side streets where they're doing the, you know, if you're ever at Vegas, you see them go and then they give you a card. That's a card to like a strip club, or you know, even though escort services in Nevada are legal, but not in Vegas proper. So technically they're not supposed to do it in Vegas. But then you'll see trucks go by too with very explicit like digital boards talking about different places you can go. And I'm sitting there when families have kids walking around, these kids are seeing this stuff. I'm like, I'm not trying to be prudish because adults can do whatever they want, but really? It seems a little, yeah, I don't know if I would do that. Okay, so let's say we have a public sealed, so let's say we have a public static class. Oh no, we'll call it a seal class, and we'll kind of follow the MLQ verbiage of T, and then we say public mock of a T of target. I think that's what we want. And so now down here, we just want to say like public void do. And in here, what we're going to do is we're going to say var mock is equal to new mock of I logger of target message. And now we want the caret there. And so what we would expect this time, hopefully, I don't know, maybe I can't reproduce this. Maybe my brain was like toasted after being in Vegas for a while and it really isn't a problem, which is fine. I'm okay with this being a short stream. So we did this. And I should, and this is a kind of a cut down on me. I should have tried to, I wrote this down because I wanted to just at least have this captured, but I didn't want to, I just didn't have the time to really come up with the case of where this was working or not working. And I should have probably been a little bit more focused, but that's okay. So what happens now? Fails, but why? There's no argument that given that corresponds to the required parameter target. It's probably I just have it set up wrong. Target message. Oh, did I write that? Target. Okay. Let's try that again. Still failed. And it failed and it took a little bit longer. There's no, okay, so this is the first one. So I'm just writing the code wrong. There's no argument given that corresponds to the required parameter target. Oh, sorry. This, took a second. All right, try this again. Okay, is this, why did it fail this time? Yes, okay, so this is actually doing now what I wanted to do. It doesn't do it on iLogger, it does it on mock. So we have now reproduced the bug. So it does it on the outer type, not the type that I have the cursor on, which is not what I want. So, Jason, there are 30 students in my class and 14 of them failed. I don't care. You know, when I was in college, and I remember like they had the freshman, they had like the freshman week. So as a freshman, you come in like a week early or whatever. And then I think they had this introduction for engineers, and there's like 300 or 400 of us in there, all different kinds of engineers. And the dean came up and he did that classic, I want you to look to your left and to your right and realize that one of you is not going to be here or something. I think he might have said one of them won't be here. Like, which, of course, me as an engineer, well, if everybody does that, then like, it's pretty much everybody gone. I think what he was trying to convey is this is not easy, and you need to stick to your studies and you need to keep up with stuff because this work is not easy work. And it's true. I mean, when I went to college as an engineer for my first 5 semesters, so fall and spring, through my junior year, fall, the first 5 semesters, I took 18 credits. Now, in American context, especially at that time, at least at Marquette, of course, colleges vary, but at Marquette, I think you had to take a minimum of 13 credits to be considered a full-time student. And as an engineer, though, because of your workload, you just had to take that much. And I just assumed that's what you had, not assume, but I just knew that's what you had to do. And I remember sometimes hearing from people going, oh my God, I got to take 14 or 15 credits this semester. It's just like the world's smallest violin. When I went, like, especially my senior year, when I went down to 15 credits, I was like, oh my God, I got so much free time, I don't have to do all this anymore, as much. And it was great, but yeah, I guess it's all perspective. So anyway, so we have the error. Now we just have to figure out why, because we want it, if your cursor's here, I would expect it to pick up that. So we have to go now into our code and figure out why it's picking up the one that it's doing. Let's go here. We probably need to be in debug. All right, so is it an unbound generic? It's false. What is the type that it thinks it is? See, it thinks it's mock. It thinks it's the outer type. It's not actually getting the okay, so the node is actually correct. It's generic name, it's iLogger. Okay. But then we immediately go find parent symbol. Why do we do this? Why do we do this? Because that's not necessarily what we want to do. We want to. So it makes sense why it's doing what it's doing, but in this case, we don't want it to do what it's doing. Like the span that we find is 219 to 220. Okay. And then find node, that's just a method that's on. Oh, my brain's also got adjusted. I've been using laptop keyboards my whole time that I'm there. And then you have to hit like the function key before you do any of the F keys. And then also those keyboards are not the nicest. So, yeah, so this is just a method on there. So it's finding it, but then for some reason we say find parent symbol. Now I could change this to just being, because this is an extension method I wrote. And so we look at so we look at the type. Maybe calling it parent symbol. Maybe we should call it find contextual symbol. Because right now I think, okay, now I'm seeing what the problem is. One, the name isn't the best. Two, what we're doing is we're assigning it, and then we look through all the types that we've defined here to say, well, is it one of them? And if we do find a match, then we go through all this. Otherwise, all this crap falls apart, and then you go up to the parent. And if you go all the way up to the parent, so at some point we must go to the parent and realize that it is a, okay, let's actually stop this because I'm starting to, again, brain cells kicking in. Smoke and alcohol. Actually, I don't smoke, but when you're at Vegas, it is the secondhand smoke that you inhale, especially in a casino. Oh my God, it's awful. And Like I've said, I smoked a little bit now and then when I was in high school. That's just what you did as an 80s kid that liked rock and roll music, but it wasn't like a pack a day, and it wasn't even every day. It was very, very casual. And that was only for like a year or two. And then maybe I would have like one or two every other 5-6 years, and I haven't had one for like 20 odd years at this point. So to say I smoked is really, really pushing the definition of what that technically means. But when you're in Vegas, it's everywhere in the casino. And I've said this before. You don't talk in the Discord server. Well, I do, but I mean, it's not much. Anyway, I've said this before. I think a hotel casino could make a killing on the Strip if it basically said no smoking allowed. I'm sure there'd be people who'd be like, oh, I want to smoke. But I bet there'd be a lot of people that would say, oh my God, thank you so much. I can finally go. And if I want to gamble and I want to do slot machines and I want to go see shows or go to the restaurants in the casino, I don't have to deal with smoke. That actually would make it palatable in some ways. But that is not the reality of Vegas. Okay, so I think I now found the culprit, which is we don't have whatever that generic thing is here. It's not picking that up. Okay. So if we come back to here to my tests, talking to this. No, not the voice chat. I just don't. You visited casino. Well, I mean, this conference is in a hotel casino on the Strip. So when you go to Vegas, if you look it up on a map, actually, hold on. Just because I like to show this. If I go to maps. Okay, hold on. I'll bring this up in just a second. Okay, so here, and then I say Las Vegas. Okay, get that out of the way. There's Harry Reid Airport, because you get into the airport and then you're pretty much right next to there. So, okay, let's bring this back up. So here's the airport, okay? And then there's a Siegfried and Roy Park right next. I didn't even know that. Okay, Siegfried and Roy, they did show for decades in Vegas. They're the ones with the tigers. So, Hunk Mansion, okay, whatever. I should be careful with what I hover over with in Vegas. But so yeah, so here's like you're going south. You start seeing like there's New York Casino. There's also MGM. This is the Strip where my mouse is moving. This is what's known as the Strip. So this is where pretty much all of the major casinos and hotels are along this. Like if I scroll in even more, where is this should be Bellagio right here. That's Hannah's. It's Link. It's Mirage. Okay. Oh, I was over too far. Okay. So here's Planet Hollywood, Gordon Ramsay Burger. This is the casino hotel is at Planet Hollywood. And then across the street is Bellagio. If you ever see Ocean's 11, that's it. This is the little pool water area that has all the fountains that move back and forth through the whole light show. And so this Las Vegas Boulevard here, this street is basically the Strip. And it goes pretty much from like down here, because this is where Excalibur and Luxor are. So kind of down here is where it starts. And then it goes all the way up to probably, I think, you consider it to be around here. And I've been, Vegas like so many times. At one time, one of the first times I went there, my friends and I, we stayed at MGM, and then we spent like just days, like the day or two, we just go up and down the Strip and just go look at different casinos. I only gambled once. I don't gamble. I don't spend my time gambling. So I just played one time at roulette and hit 36 to 1 odds on a number. And so I bet $2 and I got basically $80 back. So that was a win, and I moved on. Anyway, okay, I got to get back to this. So the parent in this case is a generic name syntax. Okay. And so if it's a generic name syntax, what we would want, and I don't know, this is where we got to play with this a little bit, is if we go, if we would say get symbol info for the current parent, it would give us a symbol back, logger of target usage. And so then what we would want is it being an unbound generic. 2 to 8. Well, that's roulette. I mean, it depends on what you bet on in roulette. And as a young kid, I don't know why, but my parents got me like a mini little roulette game thing. So I had the felt thing out with all the numbers and where you could bet, and then had the spinner thing. And so I kind of learned how you play roulette. There's certain things you can bet on. You can bet on each individual number, and those are 36 to 1 odds, basically, because you have a 1 in 36 chance in getting it right. You can also bet on the line between two numbers, and then you're basically saying I'm betting on either one or the other, but then you get like 18 to 1 odds, essentially, I think. And you can do it on the corner, so the 4 numbers, but then it goes down to 36, 4, 9 times, so 9 to 1 odds. You can also bet on black, so that's 2 to 1 odds, or red, 2 to 1 odds. You can also bet on the 0 or 00 green. And those I think are slightly a little bit more. I don't know why, but they are. And so you just put all your chips out, they spin it. And so they spin it, and then they put the ball around. It's going around and around, and you can bet all that. And then they'll wave their hand across the table, and that basically says no more bets because the ball's about to drop. And then it drops, and then they pay out. So yeah. So if you hit a number, if you bet on a number, it's 36 to 1 odds. And yeah, you can make like if I put all my $20 on that, I probably would have made around $800. But I would have had to pick that one out of I put $2 chips on 5 numbers, and then I put $10 on black. And one of those 5 numbers hit. I would have had to pick that right number and put all 20 on that. But if I would have had $800. So, but that's the lure of gambling, and that's why I don't do it. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to say get the declared symbol. But here's something I don't think I should be doing right. Oh, that's right, because if I come back here, I think this is where I check now. I get the type from the parent from this method, which I'm going to say find contextual symbol, because that's really what we're trying to do, is find the context. If it's not here, then start branching out. But you could have found it where you're at right there. So you need to find the context, the symbol for the context of what the node is that you found. And then we also do, if it's an unbound generic type, then we get the original definition. So I think all I need to do is, let's change the name of this to be find contextual symbol. Okay. Because I think that name fits a little bit well. All right. See you later. And then I need to put in type of generic name syntax, because I think that's what we had. Okay. So if we find it, what we're going to say here, big if else if switch. Not the prettiest, but it works. And so we'll say generic name syntax. And if we get the, we'll call this generic name symbol as well, just to, so either one or the other. We're going to get the parent symbol one way or the other, or that symbol. And if that works, then I think we're done and we have fixed this. And that would be a good way to end the stream. Well, let's see. So Yeah, I wonder if it's because it was the symbol itself, and when you wrap it in another one, that's what was causing the problem. So maybe the right thing is to call this a contained closed generic. Okay. Now what does this do? Passes. What about all the tests? They all pass. What about all the tests in the world? Now again, the refactorings don't affect like the code generation part of stuff, so it wouldn't surprise me if this doesn't break anything, because this really doesn't affect any of the code generation, source generation stuff, so that should be fine. And it works. Okay, so git commit 409 added support for refactoring for generic name syntax. Oh, and then I should, whoops, I don't mean to do that. What I mean to do is in the changelog is we need to have a section here fixed. Addressed issue with refactoring to target generic names directly. Good enough. And this is 409. Me can't type. Okay. Cool. Now we can commit this. Okay, so I will do the merging off camera, and that will be good. The other thing I want to work on, and I'm not going to do it today, but I just want to mention, I think the next thing, there's a couple things I want to work on with upcoming streams. One of them is an issue here that somebody brought up. Yeah, the code builders. And that's here. So Mitch brought this up. I finally got a hold of him again, and he sent me a link to a private repo of where he did this. And I'm going to take a look at that and get my head around it first. And just make sure I understand, because it's basically a custom interpolated string builder, if I understand it right. And so what I want to do here is make sure I understand what he's getting at, and then come up with some quick experiments, especially from a performance standpoint. Is it faster or not? And does it actually help? Because I think visually it does look better, but I need to make sure that it's actually like printing things out. And if like you have stuff where I want to have multiple methods in here and it's at this indentation, if I said methods, then if the methods are actually doing their own interpolated string, handlers are putting in their own content at certain places, how does that all end up composing and being put together? So it's definitely an intriguing idea, and I want to do it in part because it does make it more readable. I would agree with that, but the real kicker is, does it make it faster with less memory consumption? Because I can live with this. This I actually have a write lines, and you could arguably say I should make this a write lines, but it would be very nice if I could do a refactoring where I could pull this all together. So the next stream might be like the investigation part of this and looking into what it takes to make this happen, get some perf numbers around it, and if it looks viable, then go into the code base and put this all in there. And that's going to take some time. That I bet that's going to take a decent amount of time, but I would be willing to put that in because, again, right now, Rocks really doesn't have a ton of features that are needed. Like there's 20 odd issues there, but most of them are just like minor things, nothing really big. This is the one that I've been putting off just because it's more of a refactoring, but if it can help with performance, that's a big one. So So yeah, I'm going to take a look at that probably in the next stream. There's also an issue I think I put in with Transpire recently, and it was this idea of creating an exclude attribute for records. And what that would do is it would go in and basically, if you say I want to exclude certain properties by name, then it would override, or it would create person override equals and get hash code with the implementation that .NET typically does, except it would exclude, in this case, like age wouldn't show up in the list. So, and then you'd have to have your record be partial type. I think that'd be, because then that would put in a source generator, because Transpire is meant to be a repository or a library for, like I said, a collection of all these things. And it doesn't have a source generator in it. It doesn't need to. I want to be really clear. We don't need this to have a source generator, but it would be nice if, we covered all the bases. We have analyzers. We have, do we have a suppressor in here? I don't think we do. We do have refactorings as well. We definitely have code fixes here. And I think, do we have an explicit refactoring? No, we don't. So that's okay. So anyway, kind of babbling here, but yeah, I think I want to work on that too. I think that'd be a fun one to do as a stream, at least fun one for me. As I said many times before, and this is something that, like when I've gone to this conference, I think every talk, you almost have to have AI or LLM in your talk or Copilot somewhere. And mine didn't. Not because I'm against it. It's just, I was talking about like C# language features, and that doesn't necessarily translate to an AI talk somewhat. But, I still, and I will hold this till my retirement days. I think it's really important for people to understand how code actually works. And I think what's disparaging to me is hearing people that say, I haven't coded for months. I'm just letting all this stuff generate it for me, or I'm building all these tools for it. And I have to be really clear. I'm not against that. But if the code that it builds has an issue, and it's going to, this isn't perfection here, people. This is going to make everything, it might reduce time, but it also, like I was also reading today, somebody made the point of the flip side of having all this code generating is that it's harder for a human to, like, it's always hard for a human to go in and do a PR because you didn't write the code. And so you're not necessarily trying to go through every single line of code and figure and get that context, but you're just trying to look at it and go, I think you need to do this differently. And so if an LLM is doing this and generating a whole bunch of code, it can be even that much harder. And then if you say, well, the LLM should then do the PR, it's like, no, that's a road to perdition. You don't need that. You have to always have humans in the loop. Always, always, always. This can be an accelerator, but in my mind, this should not be something that is about getting rid of the people that have the skills, that understand how this all works, and need to make sure that they have the guardrails in place. I heard this week at VSI that lawyers, developers, they're going to be gone. Lawyers, they're going to come too. Accountants, they're gone too. And I'm sitting there going, again, this stuff can help, but I don't think you can ever have this being 100% reliable. I just don't. I don't think it's possible. I think you're going to get close, but it's not going to ever achieve perfection. That's just my opinion. And and that's the thing that I think gets missed is, I should write this story out. I should put this just on my website and say, back 30 years ago when I was in college, I worked in the engineering, or I worked at the company where my dad worked. He was a salesperson, and I worked there during the summers to make some extra money. And I wanted to work in the engineering department, but they said, no, not your first couple of years. So The first 2 years I worked like on the factory floor, and then the first year, and then the second year I worked in the maintenance department. And then I was able to move into engineering. And it was interesting one summer, because like even when I was working in engineering, sometimes I'd have to go out to the factory floor and do some testing on stuff or whatever. And so you would walk by these areas and you'd see people on these assembly lines, 5-7 people on assembly line. They take the thing, they would do their stuff that they need to do, and then send it down to the next person, you know. And one summer, in one part of the plant, they had put in something called a CNC machine. And so it was this big machine, had one person on it, could like load all these parts on it, effectively hit a button, and then stand there and make sure that it was working. But this thing would drill the holes, tap them, thread them, you know, finish the part, all this stuff, and then come out. And so there was this is going to replace 5 people type of thing, which of course the company says, no, people can get trained in this new technology and use it. The thing that I think people miss though is, well, this is going to get rid of all these people, but I think one, that's a miss, because then you're potentially missing people that are willing to learn or willing to change. But I think the other thing that people were missing is, you know, you can say, well, you have like, if you see some factory floors these days, it's like it's all automated and you have all these machines building all the cars and stuff like that. You still have people maintaining them. You still have people that are on the factory floor to make sure that everything is working. And when there's an issue, which does happen, I mean, you can't remove entropy from the universe. Crap breaks. It just does. And, you know, that's why you have people there to now you be able to program the machines. You make sure that they're running. If they start having issues, that they can maintain them and fix them and all this good stuff. So, you know, that's the thing I think people miss with this whole stuff with LLMs, is that it's stochastic. Stochastic systems are not deterministic, and you need to be there to make sure things stay on the rails. So, and people sometimes hear that and go, well, you're against all this stuff. It's like, no, but I think it needs to be approached with an engineering mindset and being practical and pragmatic, and also skeptical. People hear the word skeptical and think it means, oh, well, you're against it. It's no, skepticism is just the scientific method. You know, look at what's being done and be objective with the results, and then make your conclusions from that. Don't assume something and then go into it. You know, that is not the right way to approach stuff either. So that's why I do all these streams, and even though I have Copilot enabled, I don't tend to really use it, just because I want to use my head. I want to see if I can figure this stuff out, because I think it's a good thing to do. Is people are problem solvers. People, and I love to solve problems, and doing it in code to me is a way of just puzzle solving. And I enjoy that. So I'm not going to stop doing that. I love playing guitar. In fact, I've started to think about, could I somehow do streams where I could play background music without violating copyrights or something like that, and play guitar along with it? The soloing, and just do that for like a stream for half an hour. That might be fun. But why would I say to an LLM, well, play like me? That's missing the point completely. So, you know, that creative aspect that humans have, and I know I'm kind of not really ranting, but there's a time where I was going through a whole bunch of stuff. This is like 10 or 15 years ago. I was going through genetic algorithms, evolutionary programming, you know, a whole bunch of stuff like that. And it was really interesting to see, like, trying to get neural networks, all this stuff. And there was a book called Creative Evolutionary Systems or something like that. And I read that, and it was really kind of interesting, because it's almost like a precursor to what we have now, in the sense with AI slop. But it was this idea of, could you teach a computer, or teach is probably not the right word, but could you get a computer to start having a contextual understanding, if you want to put it that way, of what notes are and what music is. And so you could say, well, generate certain music and then get feedback from humans to say what did they like and what didn't they like, and then keep driving that to evolve it so that it would start to create music that is more of for a particular person. And that was really interesting to read. But that wasn't taking content from anybody and saying, I want to write a song that is in the style of Queensryche from Operation Mindcrime, but has a singer that sounds more like Ray Alder from Fate's Warning, and maybe it's more about like music that has themes around the environment and modern situations in the United States. Write it yourself. Do it come up with something yourself. Create the music. Figure out the arrangement. That's the fun part. If you just say, I just want this, it's like, I don't know. I don't find that to be personally a very creative process. But that's just me. That's just my feelings on some of this stuff. Anyway, so that's my plan. Is I will be probably maybe, I don't know, the next time I do a random code thing, I might want to take a look at this later today and just start doing some research on it based on what Mitch gave me, and then see where that goes. So I don't know when the next time I do a code stream will be, but I will try to do one tonight, given the movie, and then I think we're gonna grab a bite to eat after the movie. It might be 7 or 8 p.m. Central Time tonight, but I definitely want to pick up Blueprints again and do a stream with that tonight. So that is the plan, and then the rest of April, although I am doing a conference mid-April for a couple of days, but pretty much back to the Tuesday night and Thursday afternoon streaming schedule, and then whatever happens on the weekends, and then also with coding, whatever I feel like it. So I want to thank everybody who stopped by, either live or in person. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I would really appreciate it. And that is all for this stream. Thank you all for watching. Take care, and I hope to see you in the future.